I wanted to highlight a couple of new tools that come alongside the SCADAS RS Recorder app. And the first one of those tools is called the Simcenter Test Lab Schedule Designer. The general idea behind this tool is it's a add-on on top of the SCADAS RS Recorder app that allows you to prepare upfront or to front load the channel setup and the triggering and all of the steps that you might want to do during a test campaign, thus allowing the operator of the vehicle under test to focus on performing the test rather than needing to, for example, switch channel setups or change measurement strategies or so on in the middle of the test. So it's really helpful, for example, if you're out on a proving ground or a track and you're going to be performing a couple of different measurement types in sequence, the schedule designer can allow you to prepare a lot of that work upfront rather than needing to be playing with the DAC while you're in the vehicle running the test. So the general idea is that the schedule designer is a standalone tool that allows you to design a test schedule. This runs on your Windows PC. And then in the SCADAS RS Recorder app or web app, there is a new tile that allows you to open the schedule and run that schedule. Let's talk a little bit about the schedule designer tool. Here we're showing a quick video where we have a test schedule set up. So I'm going to pause it here. We've got a number of different tasks. So for example, run up, constant speed 30 kph, constant speed 50 kph, constant speed 80 kph. And within each task, we can add some items. So for example, in this run up task, we're adding a message, drive to the beginning of the track. There's then going to be a series of 3 measurements performed with some dead time in between the measurements to allow the driver to set up for the next measurement. And we can set up all of these individual tasks inside the scheduler. We could say, hey, maybe I want to repeat a certain number of these a couple of different times, and so on. And so we can define the flow of how we'd like a measurement to occur. And then in the interface, I'll get this message, for example, go to the beginning of track 1, perform the measurement, and then after the measurement is complete, I get some status here. I was given an option to begin the next measurement by hitting the start button again. I see I'm on actions 2 of 4 for task 1, which is my run up. And then I can see at the bottom here, I have the rest of my tasks at the bottom, which I will proceed to after the first task is complete. I also have some live feedback on some of my channels, so I can monitor things like engine speed channel, temperature, some critical CAN channels, and so on. And so here we're moving through the rest of these measurement tasks that have been defined by the driver. One of the nice things here is that each task can have its own measurement template file, which means it can have its own channel setup, it can have its own CAN configuration, and so on. Bird's eye view is we've got a task. If we look at the run-up task, that task has some actions, so my messaging, my weighting, my measurement. In terms of messaging, I can essentially enter anything that the driver might want to see or know, or guiding them to a specific point on the track. Then under my measurement, I have things like the template file that I'm going to use for performing that measurement. And that template file includes things like the channel setup information, the triggering information, the measurement duration, and so on. And then I can also assign some other things to these tasks, like a testlab.neo.process file if I want to process this specific measurement file with a Neo process file after the fact, as well as an LDT file, which is a test lab descriptive annotation file for supplying metadata to this measurement file. And that metadata might include things like the driver, the serial number, the engine type used, maybe some different component level information that you want to track along with the collected time data. This task really gives us a lot of flexibility in both in terms of defining the measurement and then defining what we're going to do with the measurement after it's complete. In terms of creating the schedule, the available actions are in the top left-hand side, so we can add, again, messages, measure, or wait. To use the tool, you'll drag and drop these various icons into the main display area. And we can add things like multiple tasks, multiple measurements. On the right-hand side, we have the ability to choose the template file that we'd like to associate with a specific task. So that template file will be the channel setup. Again, a process file if desired, and a descriptive annotation file. Within things like the measure task, we allow the user to repeat how many times a measurement should be repeated if it's going to be more than one measurement. We allow the user to accept or reject a measurement. So potentially if they perform the measurement and they realize they weren't at the correct speed, or maybe the machine wasn't at the correct temperature or some other parameter was not satisfied, the user can reject that measurement and perform it again. Again, then also choosing what template file to associate with the measurement, the process file, and the annotation file. Within the SCADAS RS Recorder app, once this tool is installed, you'll see this new schedule icon here on the right. It allows you to choose or import a schedule file, which we get from the Schedule Designer app via this download button. So it allows us to import a schedule file. It allows us to see the status of any particular schedule file that you've run, so you can see if those measurements have been completed or if they're still pending. On the schedule file itself, we get a sensor preview as well as some feedback on, as example, the name of the schedule, and a status bar where we can choose which individual tasks we would like to run or perform. Along the top here, you'll see that a number of actions were defined on this particular task. The software will guide you through which action you're currently performing. So here in the smooth road test, you see that there's 2 out of 5 actions. So this measure, wait, measure, and then there are 3 runs requested here. So you can see under run status, the number of runs or repeats that are going to be taken for this particular schedule. Afterwards, again, is an optional step. The user can choose to accept the measurement, or if they'd like to repeat the measurement, they can go ahead and hit that reject button. This is optional. These can also be defined where the measurement is just accepted every single time. At the end, a new folder will be created on the SCADAS RS with the name of the schedule. In this case, it was called Leuven Enablement. It'll then have in the run name the name of the task. So that might be run-ups, in this case, sawtooth, smooth road, and so on. And then the run name that was specified when creating the template file. For example, you were performing a measurement and you were maybe doing a temperature only measurement. You could say temperatures, and then it would be task name _ temperatures. There is also now a standalone SCADAS RS download and export tool. This tool allows you, it's kind of a lightweight tool that comes directly with the SCADAS RS hardware. So it's part of the web app that gives you a quick tool to quickly download and export to third-party formats data acquired with the SCADAS RS. And the way this tool will work, I'll start this video, is there's this download and export tool interface. You enter in the IP address of your SCADAS RS system. The different folders on the SCADAS RS are present here on the left-hand side. And I can choose a number of measurements that I'd like to download. I can choose the file format that I'd like to export to. And I have some options here like including the complete measurement folder or only the LDSF file for export. I can include or exclude video files. I can also remove the data from the SCADAS after exporting if desired. I'll note here that at this moment in time, this tool does not include any CAN bus decoding. And so if you want to utilize this tool with CAN bus data, that data either needs to be already decoded on the SCADAS RS hardware using the SCADAS RS recorder app. If you're looking to do something like decode the entire raw CAN bus file that was recorded, then you'll likely still want to use the SCADAS RS recording workbook for the data download and export. But this is a very nice, quick, and easy tool if you're doing the decoding all on the SCADAS RS hardware or you don't need to perform any CAN bus decoding. This tool can be downloaded directly from the SCADAS RS web app, so there's no need to go to any particular website to download this tool. There's no need to install Simcenter Test Lab or the recording workbook. And again, it allows us to do some file cleanup on the SCADAS RS if the entire measurement folder is downloaded. This is the list of files that are currently supported on the tool. Recently, we've added SIE to the list of supported files in this tool as well. So I'm in the Simcenter Test Lab Schedule Designer tool. I'm going to go ahead and go to this Schedule tab. I'm just going to create a new schedule. We'll call this something like New Measurement Schedule. And I'm going to go ahead and select Create. So now I get to this kind of main screen here where I can define a number of different tasks. And so I can go ahead and say I want to add some messages to the operator, say that, this is how you perform task 1, some instruction perhaps. I'm going to go ahead and add maybe a measurement icon in here. And I can go ahead and say, yes, I want the user to have to accept or reject the measurement file. I can choose a SCTPL file if desired, as well as if I'm using Test Lab workflow automation, I can choose a process file. But then if I'm going to be performing multiple of these measurements on a track, I can go ahead and say, let me add a new task to my current schedule. We'll call this task 2. I don't know, maybe we'll call this a strain data or something like that. Maybe I'm going to be running a couple of measurements with slightly different channel setups. So again, I can add in a measure here, or excuse me, a message, this fatigue measurements or something like that. User selectable. Add in a measure task, maybe as part of the loop here, I want them to wait 15 seconds or something. We won't do 15 minutes. We'll do a little bit of time in between, maybe looping this measurement and performing this whole series again. Once I'm happy with my schedule, I can go ahead and download this current schedule file or save it. And then I'm able to pick that up and run with it directly in the SCADAS RS web app. I've got the SCADAS RS download and export tool open on my PC. Here, again, this tool can be downloaded directly from the SCADAS RS hardware on the web app. There's a new little tile that I believe is called Utilities, where you can find this tool just directly from the web app. I type in my IP address of my SCADAS RS system, and this can be connected either wirelessly or with an Ethernet connection. It will connect to my SCADAS RS and it will show me the available list of measurements on the system. With this gears, I can go ahead and I can save a couple of different icons and places maybe where I want the files that I downloaded to go to, which directory I'd like those to go to. But when I have that here with me, I can go ahead and I can choose from a number of different file formats to export to, as well as, again, showing only the measurements where I've already got decoded CAN signals. Remember that within this tool, we don't currently support CAN bus decoding or offline CAN bus decoding of the measured data. I can also choose whether or not I just want to include the time file or the complete folder, which contains things like any video files, the raw CAN bus files, the template file, and so on. And then here I have a couple of options, for example, to exclude video files and to automatically remove the run from the SCADAS RS after the export is being complete. And so, again, the general idea behind this tool is just to give users a quick, lightweight way to be able to download their SCADAS RS data and export it to whatever format they'd like to use for their analysis without requiring a download or an installation of the free Test Lab recording workbook tool.